Welcome back to Science vs. Conspiracy over coffee. I am your host, Conspiracy, and we have a great show lined up for you today. Later in the show, we're going to talk about the controversial Canadian legislation known as Bill C-11, or the Copyright Modernization Act. If you're living in Canada and haven't heard about the proposed bill, you're going to want to stick around, because if the bill does pass, it could drastically change the way that we consume content in this country. If you're listening outside of Canada, the contents of this bill could impact your country's internet policies going forward. So stick around for that. But first, is there new evidence linking Lee Harvey Oswald to the CIA? We'll find out right after this. Do you have a fascination for the unknown? Are you drawn to the unexplained phenomenon? Subscribe to Science vs. Conspiracy over coffee and discover what lies beyond the curtain. The link is in the show notes. We are just days away from when President Joe Biden is set to decide if he will release the remaining JFK assassination documents, or will they continue to be withheld from the public, citing national security reasons. We all know the real reason why Biden has taken so long to make a decision about this. It's because his advisors are finding it more of a challenge to wake Joe Biden up from his naps. Biden gets really cranky when he doesn't get a good nap time. In December of last year, only 10% of the remaining 15,834 documents were released to the public. Of those documents, 958 were from the CIA, and those documents were partially or mostly redacted. The documents looked like a toddler used a Sharpie in a preschool art class. The National Archives also planned to digitize the entire collection of the JFK assassination records. This is probably another reason why Biden has taken his time to release it, because he's trying to figure out what digitized actually means. After the release of the files, Jefferson Morley, a JFK researcher, author, and former Washington Post staff writer, was skeptical that the documents contained anything that would prove of a conspiracy, saying in a tweet, "In terms of public understanding, this is probably more important than any documents released today. It is unlikely that this release would contain any resemblance of a smoking gun related to the assassination." Morley, who in 2003 sued the CIA for lack of transparency and the reluctant release of all the documents pertaining to the assassination. The 1992 JFK Assassination Records Collection Act states that all assassination records should be publicly disclosed within 25 years or by October 2017. After a year of searching through the files, Morley recently announced that he is in possession of documents that he claims is a smoking gun. The smoking gun that links Oswald to the CIA. The documents apparently show that Oswald was involved in a CIA intelligence operation in the summer of 1963, months before the assassination. In a recent interview, Morley said, "This is an extraordinary, serious claim, and it has profound implications of the official story. These claims are based on files created by George Jonades, a CIA agent who worked with anti-Castro exile groups." Little is known about this operation involving Lee Harvey Oswald, and there's about 44 more documents still being retained by the agency that could offer more evidence about this operation. Back in 2017, Donald Trump was set to release all the remaining documents. However, at the last minute, he delayed the release, citing national security reasons. However, it was President Trump who set the October 2021 deadline that Morley is referring to. President Biden postponed that planned release, citing delays caused by the coronavirus pandemic. Kind of a convenient timing for this, don't you think? But that's another story. Biden also has said, temporarily continued postponement is necessary to protect against identifiable harm to the military defense, intelligence operations, law enforcement, or the conduct of foreign relations. This outweighs the public's interest in immediate disclosure. Learning the truth is essential to our democracy. We need to know what happened, who is involved, in order for us to move forward and learn from our mistakes. He went on to say that both Robert and Jackie Kennedy said in private that John F. Kennedy was assassinated by domestic enemies. That's what's on these tapes and why they're so sensitive. I guess we'll know in a few days if Biden releases the documents or not, and if a further cover-up is taking place. We'll definitely be keeping an eye on this one. Up next, the future of creating content online with Bill C-11. Here in Canada, we've had for some time legislation in place and regulated by the CRTC, the Canadian Radio and Television Commission, that all Canadian broadcasters have to adhere to strict guidelines when it comes to the amount of Canadian content they are required to broadcast each day. Regardless if the consumer wants it or not, they have to produce it. Outside of sporting events and news broadcasts, the quality in terms of content and production value often makes your home movies look like Oscar contenders. That's not to say that all Canadian produced content is bad, but unlike our American counterparts, Canadian productions lack mass appeal. It's understandable because Canada has a population of 38.5 million as of 2021, where in California alone has a greater population with a staggering 39.24 million as of 2021. And that brings us to the proposed Bill C-11. In short, the proposed bill is designed to ensure Canadian content gets seen by Canadians, regardless if they want to see it or not. The biggest change in this legislation will also apply for the first time to streaming services and user-generated platforms such as YouTube, Twitter, and TikTok. The CRTC chair suggested that they require platforms to manipulate algorithms to produce certain results. He later clarified his statement by saying to ensure that Canadians are made aware of the content and that they can find it. It's not about manipulating algorithms. But that's exactly what that means. To ensure Canadians are made aware of Canadian content, one of the main reasons why Google and others are so popular, right or wrong, is that these algorithms on these platforms learn your watching behavior and suggest content that it thinks that you will want to watch. The longer you're on their platform, the better. The more revenue can be made. If Google and others are forced to change the way they serve content to their audience, this could and will have a negative effect on creators who rely on likes and comments. For many Canadian creators, they count on the audience from outside of Canada. If their content gets suggested to Canadians first, a large portion will not be interested in this content and skip right over it. If your videos get skipped enough times, the platform will stop suggesting it to viewers outside of Canada, serving a fatal blow to Canadian content creators and their revenue streams. And not to mention that the government is essentially telling Canadians what to watch. And that's a dangerous slope to go down. In my opinion, I think the Canadian government and governments in general should stay out of people's living rooms. It should be a free market and let the viewer decide what's good and what's not so good. If you don't want to watch something, then don't watch it. It really should be that simple. If you don't like something, turn the channel. We have 8 zillion channels out there, plus 1 million streaming services and videos on YouTube and other platforms. And if you don't like it, there's something out there that is for you, that you will enjoy. So I think we should all keep an eye on this Bill C-11. And I know YouTube has actually started putting banners at the bottom of some videos saying to learn more, to click on it and to learn more. And I think we need to keep an eye on this because it is a slippery slope of censorship and being told what to do and how to do it. Well, that's the show for this week, and I want to thank you for listening. I am Conspiracy, and if you like the show, please give us a like and leave us a comment. We'd love to hear your feedback, and we'll be back next week for Science versus Conspiracy over coffee. And remember, being paranoid is smart. We'll see you next time. This week's episode of Science vs. Conspiracy Over Coffee was produced by Lethologica. Research and writing was done by Bob Homer and Jennifer Timer.